Dr. Booher, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Always good to see you. Much respect for you and your family. Welcome. How's it going in Fort Worth?
Oh, life is great in Fort Worth. Nothing to complain about at all.
So I just want to know, Dr. Booher, what made you want to become a neurosurgeon?
Well, neurosurgery is an intense field. When people hear the word neurosurgery, it usually kind of sparks an interesting conversation. But there was just a multitude of things in my life that kind of took place that led me to that path. Number one, heavy influence from my father. He worked in the medical industry with an ophthalmologist for my entire life. So he had a huge influence on me in terms of going into medicine. And then actually when I was in, I think it was 8th or 9th grade, I read a book, the autobiography of Benjamin Carson, actually. He's a pediatric neurosurgeon. And I think I told my parents in 8th or 9th grade, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon, and never really wavered from that point. But then, just a lot of things throughout my life kind of led me to that situation. As soon as I started undergrad, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So that really sparked my interest in studying neuroscience and just kind of learning more about that. And I was just curious, and it's always been a passion of mine to work with my hands. So just kind of the combination of a lot of things that happened in my life really led me to the field of neurosurgery, and it's been a really great fit. And they always say it doesn't feel like work when if you really love what you do. And I'm very fortunate and lucky that I get to practice that every single day. I'm very lucky to do what I do.
So for all of the young people out there who may have aspirations to follow in your footstep, what kind of skills are needed educationally to become a neurosurgeon?
Well, neurosurgery is a very long path, that's for sure. I may look like I'm 20 years old, but I'm blessed with a baby face. But in actuality, I'm 36, which is young for a neurosurgeon. But education is key. I was fortunate enough to go to University of Texas in Austin, so you have to do 4 years of undergraduate. You have to have really good grades and everything to get into medical school, and then obviously 4 years of medical school, and you got to be right towards the top of your class to get into neurosurgery. It's very competitive. And then the long and arduous part is the residency, the training after medical school. That is neurosurgery is actually the longest training program. It's 7 years. So 7 years of a lot of sleepless nights, being on call, but it's well worth it in the end.
Wow. And look at you, you're doing it. Hey, everybody, all my coffee drinkers out there, throw a like, throw a heart out there, comment in the section. Dr. Booher, for those who are dealing with a caffeine use disorder and they do not get their cup of coffee and their head starts to hurt, so they go get some medication to make their head. What can you say to the person going through caffeine withdrawal?
Well, that is a good question, because I got to say I'm guilty of that caffeine abuse for sure. I don't know if I would make it through life without my caffeine. But it's just one of those things in moderation. I've definitely had periods of time when I was going through training and relied on things like caffeine very heavily. But as soon as you cut it out, you start to realize how bad the headaches are and things like that. So it's just like anything, moderation.
So Dr. Booher, in your opinion, what are some of the latest developments in neurosurgery? I know it changes, science changes daily. Where is neurosurgery now, and where do you predict the field to be in the future?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Brandon. That's the thing that I love about neurosurgery, is that when it comes to operating on the brain, a lot of people may not actually know. Let me take a step back. Neurosurgery is not just operating on the brain. I do a lot of different things. I operate on the brain, I operate on the peripheral nerves, but around 70% of what I do is spine surgery as well. And I think everybody has a friend or a friend of a friend or somebody who's had a very bad experience with spine surgery, because it is such a delicate thing and a very hard thing to treat. But that is what is so amazing about neurosurgery. I've been practicing for just a few years, but even since the time that I started my training, I've seen so many advances. The use of robotics in spine surgery is kind of brand new, and that has really changed the game. I've been very fortunate in that I was really heavily involved in some of the earliest developments of robotic spine surgery, and it's really just made a huge difference in terms of patients' overall pain and recovery and blood loss. We're talking patients traditionally having, an incision this big on their back. Now I'm doing surgery through basically tiny little portals. In the past, patients would be hospitalized for 5 to 7 days. And, I think almost all of my patients these days are going home within 24 hours. So,
and Dr. Booher, I actually had back surgery. I was in a car accident back in 2004. I think it was an L4, L5 laminectomy.
Oh, yeah.
I actually got addicted to painkillers, and I was hooked on the painkillers for 4 years, and I've been sober now for 13 years. Are there any kind of medications that doctors can give patients post-surgery who may have a substance use disorder, or they're afraid that they may develop one?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm very conscious of that because it has become such an issue. These medications that we give, it becomes just such a routine thing as a surgeon, just to say, okay, you're having pain, you've just had surgery, here's a narcotic. And we don't really necessarily take the time to sit back and think about the consequences of everything that we do. It just becomes so routine. But these medications make huge differences in people's lives, and they can have huge consequences. So I have really started to employ, there's some new research called, enhanced recovery after surgery, or ERAS for short. And it really involves pre-medicating before surgery. I'm using this long-acting lidocaine, which traditional lidocaine around the surgery site lasts, a few hours, 24 hours at the max. And this new medication that I'm using is lasting 3 to 4 days. That really, I've noticed a huge difference in terms of recovery for that. And really just being conscious of the medications and talking to the patients before and after surgery. I really counsel all my patients on what to expect, what to think about before and after surgery, and just limiting the exposure to those medications as much as possible afterwards.
And it's really important, the viewership watching, make sure you tell your doctor if you're struggling with any kind of addiction. It's really important to let them know so they can treat you effectively. So, Dr. Booher, I've watched a couple of surgeries, some brain surgeries, and I noticed that oftentimes the patients are awake during surgery. And I saw one guy playing a guitar while he was being operated on. What's the concept behind that, keeping somebody awake?
So that is I think when people think of neurosurgery, they think of Grey's Anatomy, or they think of some sort of TV show, some kind of dramatized, awake surgery. And, that is an incredible thing to watch. It is very rare, but, when there are tumors, brain tumors in certain areas of the brain, such as, close to the speech centers or close to an area of the brain that controls motor function, those are very delicate areas of the brain. So even just a few millimeters of variance of where you're resecting this tumor can make a huge difference in someone's life. I've only done a handful of those surgeries. That's how rare it is. But I can distinctly remember one of my first experiences in neurosurgery during my training. Some guy, we were operating on his brain, and on the other end of the drape behind where anesthesia was, the patient's on the phone talking to his wife while I'm sitting there resecting tumor. It's just one of those wild experiences that you never forget. but it really is there for an added level of safety for patients. And it's amazing that we have the technology to actually do that and do that in a safe manner.
So do you see brain transplants coming or spine transplants? Is that already in discussion? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, there's always been these kind of discussions, and I think I don't see it coming in the near future. There's a ton of research. I was fortunate enough to do some stuff regarding spinal cord injury and prevention of the after effects of spinal cord injury. But you know, if you really think about, I always tell people the spinal cord is like a wire, you know, with like 12 billion different wires running through it. So if that thing is severed, in order to put that thing back together is impossible. I'm not trying to say that there's no hope for cures for spinal cord injury or anything like that. I think there's a lot of advances that we've made, and there's a lot of promise, but it just goes to show the complexity of the nervous system. And I think we still have a long way to go before that kind of stuff is happening.
Well, Dr. Booher, really appreciate you coming on the show. Can you promise me one thing?
Absolutely. What is that?
That you will come back.
Absolutely. I would be honored. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate what you do, everyone. This is Dr. Grant Booher, neurosurgeon out there changing lives and saving lives. Doc, we appreciate you. Best wishes to you.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Take care.
All right, everybody. My next guest has a segment called